Hey everyone, welcome to another AMG guide. This one, of course, is the official Cities Excel 2012 guide. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for donating and helping me obviously continue to make guides for games. Now, if you have or previously bought or donated my previous guides, you know exactly what to expect, and if not, then I will be going through it as always, step by step through the whole guide itself. So the first page you're going to see on your guide is going to be the AMG video section. The AMG video section, of course, is going to have all the different categories that the game includes, such as the starter pack, tutorials, mods, sound, music, walkthroughs, and Cities Excel newscasts. Of course, each of these links are clickable, so you can actually click it and open it up in your browser. So as mentioned before, the guide is recommended that you do have an internet connection with this guide. You can obviously have it offline, but it's just not it because you don't have access to the videos when you're offline. So the AMG videos, of course, provides you with all, you can say, the necessary videos for the game itself. Overall, you can find all the information you need for the game and all these videos. Okay, the guide, of course, gives you a more, you can say, in-depth, more specialization, you can say, knowledge for the actual game itself, because I really did break it down to really the most detailed aspect if you really want to make it as efficient as possible. And if you have been watching my Let's Plays, you know that I do try to do that. Anyways, now the next section, you're going to have city specializations. Why does this follow? This is the main thing. When you do start your city, remember, you have to select what type of city you want to build. You're going to have to either select, I want a clean city to build, or I want a dirty city to build. Now keep in mind that all of these are classified as clean. All of these don't produce pollution, and all of these, of course, do produce pollution. And now if we do ignore the actual classes, that being elites, executive, skilled workers, or non-skilled, and if we do just look at the resources and services. So firstly, you're going to have to decide if you're going to want to build a clean city or a dirty city. I would suggest, this is what I would recommend, because this is the way I built it. Remember, these are just my recommendations. If you do watch my Let's Plays, you see that it works out pretty well. I do sort of, you can say, finish the game, quote unquote. Now, the first thing that I did do is build a clean city. The clean city, of course, consisted of agriculture and offices. Remember, you're going to have to specialize your city in just a few things. You can't specialize it in more because number one, it's not feasible, and number two, you're going to realize that your freight capacity, you don't have enough freight capacity to export all this stuff. If you don't know exactly what I mean by that, when you watch my tutorials, you'll understand what I mean by that. Now, when you're going to pick a dirty or clean city, you're going to have to know what type of city it's going to be. I have split it up this way. This is the way I split it up. You know, you can split it up any way you want. You can maybe try a different combination. It might work out for you. But I have found that this way is the best way. So my first city, of course, was agriculture, offices. Second was holidays, heavy industry, waste. And these were dirty, of course, the red ones. Now, if you do take a look at overall, this is again my breakdown of my cities at, you can say, the final stage. You can say the population, I have 1.6 million, income I have around 4.1 million. You know, freight capacity, as you do see, I nearly maxed it out. Yes, freight capacity, passenger capacity and freight capacity are nearly maxed out for my agricultural city. Okay, this is my agriculture and offices town. Now, if you do see my resources, remember these are tokens. Each token you can export, and these are, of course, tokens for production and consumption. I'm going through this pretty quickly. If you really want to go into in-depth and exactly whatever I'm talking about, just go to the AMG videos and go to the section that you want to know in-depth wise. This is just to give you a general idea, more general idea of to get a better feel of what to expect. Now, with the agriculture, as you see, with this much population, look at how much water I'm producing, because the map actually did consist of water. So it's a good idea if the map has a resource that you need to actually produce it, because like that you reduce your freight export or import of that actual item. That means you free up freight and passenger capacity, mainly freight capacity, for other items that you can export or import. So this is pretty key. Now, as you see, I have 38 consumption and 83 production, but for such a big city, you see consumption I have 28.8. So for a population of 1.6 million, I need 28.8 tokens of food. That's how much I consume. Okay, now to get an idea of 28.8 tokens, you will also need, let's say, 13.5 tokens of fuel, 44 tokens of heavy industry, 43 tokens of manufacturing. So this is just to give you a better idea of exactly how much consumption or how many units you're going to need for a city with this amount of size for different resources. As you do see, agriculture and offices needs a lot, like you can say, a little bit of fuel, medium amount of heavy industry, manufacturing, high-tech electricity, and holidays quite a lot. So in a way, holidays are quite a lot, because even though holidays are 18.9, but for holidays, it's like, I would say, proportionally in terms of consumption, that is quite a lot. And as you see, offices, I'm producing over 1,179 units of offices, out of which I'm only consuming 65. Okay, so should just give you a general idea or a feel of what the city will demand in a later on game. This is really key, as you can set up other, of course, cities to produce this. Now, for the holidays, again, you get a general idea. It's a small city. It's only a very small population, but you do have already a general idea that it does, like, if you're going to increase your sorry, my voice is going. If you're going to increase your actual holidays production, you're literally going to need, you can say, a balance between electricity, high-tech manufacturing, heavy fuel, heavy, all of this goes up. All the demand for all these actual goods goes up, and products and services goes up. So that's linked to that. It's a good thing to know, to keep in mind. For example, oil and electricity, I know it's heavily reliant on waste. So when you're going to do your oil and electricity, make sure you have a waste city up and running, because you're going to have to provide it quite a lot of waste. So that's also a good thing to keep in mind. You're going to really need to provide quite a lot of waste. But for, you can say, the agriculture offices, remember, you're going to be jumping between city to city. Especially in the beginning, you're going to be jumping a lot. Once you start selling a lot of tokens and you make a lot of income, of course, you can import it from Omnicorp, and then later on you balance it out, so you stop paying Omnicorp and you just import it from your own towns. Now, for the waste, again, keep in mind the waste you're going to be producing, as you see, a lot of waste and a lot of manufacturing. This is my waste and manufacturing town. And you got to keep an eye out for your water. It's going to consume a lot, and your electricity is going to consume a lot. And of course, you do have food as well. So waste does also consume quite a lot of food. You'd be surprised. Now, high tech, again, I'm producing high tech, I'm producing water. Keep an eye out for manufacturing. High tech consumes a lot of manufacturing and quite a bit of waste as well. So these are things to keep an eye out for. Actually, I'll read these out, so you'll know what to keep an eye out for in terms of what that city consumes quite a lot of. Now, for heavy industry, of course, I'm producing a lot of heavy industry. Heavy industry consumes a lot of fuel. Consumes a lot of fuel and manufacturing. So keep an eye out when you're producing your heavy industry. That city is going to need a lot of fuel and a lot of manufacturing. So this is pretty much it for the specializations. Make sure you pick what city you're going to do and just specialize in that field itself. This is to give you a general idea of what it is later on in the game and what that city actually needs and how many tokens. Of course, all the excess tokens I am exporting. As you do see, I'm exporting all this. That's why I'm making so much money. Now let's go to our housing. Housing section, of course, you do build different types of housing. From low to high density, which means the population is greater. Of course, each of these different densities is unlocked at a certain population, and the maximum is around 100,000 population. So I would recommend, if you don't still have feel for the game, you're going to have to be building up with low density and going in accordance to the actual, you can say, achievements and unlock your actual density buildings. But once you do have a little bit of a feel, I would highly recommend you go to the options, put the advanced option on, which means it unlocks all the buildings and all the things, and directly start building with high density. Okay, because there's really no point in building low and medium, because you're going to have to redestroy and rebuild everything again and again and again until you get the high density, which is the most efficient per square meter of populace. So this is just a good thing to keep in mind, that how much it costs and how much population each of these has. Now for our industrial section, here the interesting part starts. Here I broke down every single industry and what the buildings do and what they benefit from, and of course what they suffer from. So this is a good thing to keep in mind, and of course how much money they make. Now of course the amount of money they make is, you can say, arguable. And this is just in my gameplay. Of course you can maybe make a little bit more, maybe you can make just substantially a bit more, maybe your actual thing is making less. But when I was playing, I did sort of put the average tax and average income of these actual, you can say, industries. Now of course for the food you only make 210. Why I'm putting the tax is very important to keep an eye on the tax, because you do want to make money, and one of your main streams, or maybe not, you can say one of the base main streams, not the stream that's going to give you the actual income and profit, but one of the base main streams that cover all your costs, that being city services and leisures, is from taxes. So always try to build stuff that gives you a lot of tax, because that's going to be covering your city services and leisures. So now, of course, each industry has its own specialization buildings. As you do notice, most of the industries, that being heavy industry or manufacturing, they do have at least 3 specialization buildings. And the majority of the time it is around, you improve the actual output, then you get a 30% boost, and then you get a 40% boost. Usually the 30% boosts, for example, for the food, they're not limited. So I can keep building the food fertilizer as long as I keep building enough of the actual farms. Now to get, of course, these specializations, you need to build a lot of the actual product itself. So for example, to get a specialization in my heavy industry, I need to build a lot of my heavy industries. It means a lot of if I'm building high density, I'm going to build a lot of high. If I'm building medium, it means I'm going to need to build probably double the amount of medium to be able to unlock these specializations. Now, the majority of them, as you do see for, let's say, for heavy and manufacturing, you do get one block for 30%, then you get, I think, two buildings for 45, and then you get 2 buildings for 45 with the actual bonus, and that's it. For the actual last bonus building, the one with the 5% education bonus, you only get 2 of these. So once you do build 2 of these, there's no point in continuing to build heavy industry or building manufacturing or building whatever you're trying to build, because you're not going to get any more for that final bonus. And of course, do keep in mind that there's no point to keep building bonus buildings if you can't export it or sell it. You're just going to piss off your economy and you're not going to make money. So as you do notice in my Let's Plays, I do stop building these bonus buildings because I have so many tokens I can't sell them or do anything with them. You know, this is the way the game was built, and that's the way it is. You just have to accept that. Now, of course, keep in mind for specializations, not only do actually these separate segments, as you see, food, heavy industry, manufacturing, high-tech, offices, let's just go all the way till high-tech. All these have, of course, the specializations. Now, keep in mind, offices has a hell of a lot more specializations. You actually have offices that specialize and improve your production of other industries as well. As you do see, I have specialization offices that improve my food, that improve my water, that improve my high-tech, that improve my waste, and improve electricity. So always do jump to your offices and do understand on how it works. Of course, to get these, you need to build more offices. For example, to get any of these, you need to build more of offices. You can't unlock the merchant guild unless you don't have more offices. You need to build a lot of offices to start unlocking these. So the more offices you build, the more you get these. Sometimes, for example, the way I did it, I can't unlock, for example, in my electricity or my waste to build the actual waste production, because I don't have offices in my waste because I'm importing them. Well, this is again good to know, and a good amount of knowledge in terms of taxes and costs. Of course, each of these come with costs, but the costs in terms of the actual percentage boost really doesn't matter, because you make so much money from the actual percentage boost that the actual cost itself doesn't really matter. Now we will get, of course, to the actual cost per percentage, and you'll see exactly how much profit. Of course, you do have the workers required, so you do have an idea of what the workers are, and you do know exactly what they need. Okay, now if we do go to our commerce is pretty interesting. You do have, again, low, medium, high. You do have the taxes you do get from them, so of course always do try to build the highest density to get the most amount of taxes, and resources sold of what it actually sells. And then you have specializations. It is key to start building the specialization buildings later on, as it will actually satisfy your retail demand. Remember, at the end of the day, when you do check your retail, you're going to be producing a lot of it, but they'll still keep complaining they need shops. That's because you're not building specializations. They do need care for, they do need all this other stuff to keep them satisfied. So that's good to know. And of course, it's good to know how much money you make. So the care for hypermarket makes you 3.4 thousand credits, which is pretty good just for a damn market. Now, holidays and business hotels, this is again very key. The holiday hotels, you can build as many as you want. Again, it's always a good idea to focus on the buildings that give you a bonus, of course, because they increase overall your actual bonus. And then you have the business hotels. Business hotels, you can't export this. This is the only product you can export, you know, which is a sort of disadvantage. And of course, business hotels is a little bit difficult because business hotels are reliant on, you can say, transport, on how good it's interconnected to your actual populace. You know, sooner or later you're going to realize that the business hotels do need a bus line or a metro line, so you're going to just have to build that stuff just so they're happy. And again, try to concentrate the moment you unlock the actual bonus buildings for the business hotels, build them, because any amount of bonus is really nice, even though it's going to cost you quite a bit. So of course the Novotel Kong is going to cost you quite a bit of money. It doesn't give you tax, while the Peace Hotel gives you tax and it gives you 5% office profit. So sticking this, which I did stick to my office, increased my percent substantially. 5%, you might think, well, it's not really that much, but it is quite a lot. You'd be surprised how much money you do make from that. Of course, they're all influenced by quality of life. So traffic, pollution, noise, air, industry is going to stop this from being effective. This is why it's categorized in the clean cities. So make sure that it's the way it is. Now, once you're done with the business hotels and holiday hotels, you're going to have to go to your leisures. Of course, before I do jump, every city, one way or another, is going to need business hotels. Of course, they do need holidays, but sooner or later you do need to build business hotels, because this is the only thing you can't import or export it. So you're going to have to build this up yourself. So make sure when you build up your city that it's strategically placed, that the business hotels that you do build might be close to everything. Like that, you don't need to build a public transport for it. This is just a tip and trick from me. Anyways, let's jump to our leisures. Ledgers are pretty easy in terms of how to build and what to build. Check tutorial for that. Again, try to focus on the ones that do give you a bonus. This being 2% elites and 2% executive satisfaction for the Kodak Theater. And of course, you do have the monthly cost for each of these ledgers written beside them, and of course the range and negative effects that they do have and the workers required. In general, when you are building your actual sports or cultural ledgers, I would always recommend start from the cheapest and always go up. Never build the same ledger. Obviously check my ledgers tutorial, and never build the same ledgers twice. There's no point, you're just wasting money. You just keep going up, keep going up, keep going up, keep going up. And you can even there's no need to even build the same ledger with the same price line. You know, that's another trick from me, including your city services and including your city services. Yeah, that's it, including your city services. So if your city services, you notice that you have 2 or 3 buildings with the same price line, then don't build the 2 or 3 buildings, jump to the second price line, the one above it, okay, and build that. That'll pretty much affect and improve overall, you know, performance of that actual building itself. And in the ledgers, there's quite a lot of buildings that do provide quite a lot of benefits and bonuses. So try to again place these buildings down as soon as you do get them, because of course all types of bonuses do improve the general overall feel of your game itself. Now you do have freight and trade. Freight and trade here is the interesting part. Each city, each town that you do have has of course a freight and trade capacity, that being freight and trade by passengers, I mean, so let's call it freight and passengers. Now you can build intercity links. It means if you do move your actual roads to the side of the thing, you can build intercity links. I do suggest you check again my tutorial for freight and trade. This is just to give you a general idea. You have different types of things you can build to increase your freight capacity, to increase your passenger capacity, and how much it costs, monthly costs. Overall, the profit of course per, you can say, a harbor is substantially greater than the profit per a large airport. As you do see, freight is everything that's counted as freight when you're exporting or importing. I written down here. So if you're exporting, importing waste, fuel, heavy industry, blah 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 blah, it's counted as 1 freight per 1 token. All of these are counted as passengers, and this is not counted as anything. Electricity doesn't fall under any classification. Now the amount of money you make per token for all the freight is 3,500. For passengers, all the actual, you can say, labor force is around 500 per token, and offices is 3,000, and holidays is 3,500 per token. So technically, yes, if you want to export a passenger, you can say, if you want to export a passenger token, or in some way passenger freight in some way, not like actual freight but passenger freight, I don't know how else to classify this. If you want to export your passengers or labor force in terms of the passengers side, I would focus on offices and holidays, of course, because it gives you substantially greater profit. You know, I took offices because it's more fun to build. You know, even though holidays is substantially easier, but it's a little bit more boring. Offices is nicer to export to max out. So that's what I focused on. Electricity, yes, it doesn't give you, it gives you 3,500. It's not counted as either freight or passengers because it is electricity. It can't count as either. And business hotels is not tradable, so you can't trade that whether you like it or not, and you can't sell that. Now, for electricity, you might say, okay, but hold on, if I don't have a passenger or freight, it's not counted as any of the electricity. It means I can sell as much as I want and make as much profit as I want. No, I tried that, doesn't work. Up to a certain point, I do believe 60, 70 tokens you can export or import. Export, I mean, for selling. And after that, you just don't make any profit. So try that, doesn't work. So never mind that. I will also actually add a breakdown for profit in terms of how many tokens you need to sell to break even with this, that I could add as well. Now for the utilities here is of course your main, you can say, income. You are going to make money from your utility buildings whether you like it or not. In the beginning it's very difficult because utilities cost you money to actually build and they cost you money to maintain, but they do make just a little bit of tokens in the beginning, but later on, once you do build enough of them, it means for my electricity, if I build enough of any of these, if I build a lot of large power plants, I'm going to get a specialization building. If I'm going to build a lot of oil extractors, I'm going to get a refinery. And then if I build a lot of refineries, I get an oil processing plant. And if I build even more of these, then I'm going to get one of these specialization buildings that, of course, increases my overall production of the oil itself. And you'll be like, yeah, but it's costing me so much money. I can't make that much money. You can make a killing. This is really your main, you can say, income in one way or another. I do make the most income from this, and of course from offices and holidays. I prefer to pick offices for my passenger freight capacity. Now, building up any of these, of course, will give you the specialization buildings. You need to build a lot. I need to build a lot of wastes to to unlock all of these things. So then I get incinerator when I build a lot of waste, and if I build even more waste I get more incinerators, and then I finally unlock my specializations, which give me a 45% boost. So for example, if I have, let's say, I don't know, if I'm producing 20 tokens of waste, and then I finally unlock this, and then I'm gonna, just by building this down, I'm gonna be producing, I don't know, 50 tokens of waste. Of course, when you get to this 45% boost and it does cost you 60,000, you're not going to be producing 20 tokens of waste. That's ridiculous. You're going to be producing probably around 100, 120, and when you plop this down, you're going to be producing around 200-300. So you can see the profit ratio. Of course, I will stick the profit ratio here, so you do have an idea of how much money you need to actually, of how many tokens you need to sell to make a profit in terms of the 3,500 mark. I'm back. What I've actually did, as you do see, I put the break-even point for selling stuff for 3,500 and the break-even point for selling 0.5 or 500, you can say, credits of tokens. Now you need, you can say, for the small harbor, I need to sell 2.28 tokens of the 3.5 thousand, you can say, services and utilities. So the same thing applies. So if you do look at the large harbor, I need to sell 3.4 of the 3,500 to at least break even. Now for the passengers, you need only 10.2 tokens for the 3.5, and of course the rest is profit. So for example, if I'm trying to export something, I do know that if I'm selling something for 3,500, that being waste, water, fuel, heavy industry, anything that it is, I need to sell the first tokens. The first 10 tokens will cover my cost of the large airport. But of course this doesn't apply for the airports. The freight doesn't apply for the airport, so you can't do that with the actual airports. The only thing that actually uses the airports is the passenger, and passengers, you have to look at this. So I need 16, at least 16 of unskilled, skilled executives or elites I need to sell just to break even with my small airport, and I need 72 to break even with my large airport. Overall, you see that the airport gives you 240, so out of 240 minus 72, and then you will see how many, you can say, tokens you have left to export. Overall, I would say that selling anything for 500 is a waste of money and a very little profit, and it's not really effective in terms of selling stuff for 500, but you know, this is just for you to know. Now back to our utilities, I did add the break-even for the 3.5k. I didn't want to take the cheaper ones, and you do see that for all my specialized, I need to sell at least 17 to 11 tokens of each just to break even the cost of this. Of course, this is going to be 45%, so you're going to get, obviously going to get a hell of a lot more bonus for instead of 17 tokens, you're probably going to get around 100, 180 tokens, if not more, depending on how you built up. So having 17 tokens just to cover the cost of this is going to be very irrelevant at that time, one way or another. Of course, you do have the efficiency and how efficient these things are, and what the negative effects of this is. So keep in mind to put them away from your actual populace. Now, city services, you do have, of course, different types of city services: health, education, security, so on and so forth. Again, as mentioned before, look in my tutorial. This is just to give you an idea. This is the range where it hits, the efficiency and how effective it is, and the workers, of course, what it does need. Mix them up and never build a lot of one, and that just doesn't work. Look at my tutorials for further information. Now let's jump to the decorations. Decorations are pretty nice. Majority of the time you do need decorations to keep the citizens happy, but if you do build it up well in terms of traffic and location, so on and so forth, you're not going to have an issue. Again, concentrate on building the ones that give you bonuses. Always concentrate on bonus buildings and concentrate to try to get them. Of course, you will need a minimum amount of population to unlock these, but once you do unlock them, build them immediately. So overall, I would say, you can say the max cap of population in this game to unlock everything is around 2 million. You know, I haven't really played more. I think I got 2.5 million population, but I've been jumping around cities too much, and I do believe I unlocked everything at around 2 million population. So do let me know in case I'm wrong. But 2 million population, you can say, is the population to hit to pretty much unlock all the things in the game. Now for the blueprints, these are very, very good. Blueprints, again, these should be sort of, you can say, mid-end game. You should start building these blueprints. They do benefit your actual citizens substantially. You have different tiers of blueprints, and each actual tier of blueprint, of course, has its own benefit, different stages of building. You have 2 stages of building the blueprints. Don't ever underestimate the amount of resources they need. They need a huge amount of resources. Again, you do have to break even in terms of 3.5k units that you're selling. It means that I need at least 2 to 3, 2.8 of 3.5k. units to sell to just break even one of these. Of course, you're going to need just a little bit of money to break even one of the cost of one of these blueprints. Now you have 4 different tiers of blueprints. Here are the different tiers and exactly what they do. Quality of life, of course, practically all the blueprints, majority, I think 95% of all blueprints do give you quality of life. The higher the tier, the more intense the quality of life is. What do I mean by that? For example, you have a quality of life area when you want to build your holidays, and when you put your holiday down, the quality of life, as you do notice from the green, will change to red very quickly. But of course, the higher level of quality of life is, the less it eats up the quality of life. So for example, if I have the cheap quality of life, I place a hotel down, holiday hotel, it eats it up very quickly. But if I have very high quality of life, I can place maybe 2, 3 in the same location while it's still being green. So this is a good thing to keep in mind. Again, you do have token bonuses, 10% token bonus for nuclear power plant. Again, keep in mind that the cost is there, so you're going to have to at least sell 14 tokens, and then the balance, that being around, you could say, I don't know, what is it, 35, 36 tokens, you're going to be making profit. So you're literally, your profit is based off 36 tokens times 3.5k. So that's your profit. So keep that in mind. Again, always focus on these bonuses. They will really substantially improve you, especially for my holiday town. I did try to pick off these, and in some of my towns I did manage to unlock some of these as well. So I did stick them in one of my towns as well. Now the controls and layouts for the actual game itself are, again, in my, you can say, AMG video section. I did put the tutorial there. For some reason it's not loading up now. And of course have the controls and layouts. Now hopefully it'll load up. So if we jump to the controls and layouts, I did mention all of these here. You can watch the video. That'll give you exactly more in-depth insight on how to use them and what mistakes people usually do and how to solve it in terms of that. Now, hints and tips, these haven't been given out for the general one. These I did sort of place additional stuff that you should know. For the resources, when you do start, you can say when you do start destroying some of your resources that you do have, which affect your actual export, the whole thing resets. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to go back to your resource panel and reassign all those resources to all those towns. It's pretty annoying, yes, but that sometimes happens. Now for the starting income, offices is a good stable income to make, and generally you will build offices practically in the beginning of each of your cities, and then you remove them of course later on. Taxes from your classes, that being your unskilled, skilled, all the way to elites, pay off the leisure city services. You can pretty much read all the stuff here that should help you out. In terms of other things that I did mention, you can say the lag, reducing your lower graphics, since it doesn't support multi-core, so it's going to lag whether you like it or not, so you're going to have to just reduce the graphics to get over that. Hopefully SimCity 2013 will be working on multi-core support, multi-thread, so that'll be pretty nice. Freight capacity, you do have, if you do connect all the intercity links, if your map actually has no water and you can connect all the intercity links around the whole, you can say, map itself, you get around 320 freight and passenger tokens for the whole map itself. So that's good also to keep in mind. There's of course a bunch of other extra things I did mention here. For the terrain selection, it's best to build your freight exporting cities and locations and rivers. By that I mean, for example, if I'm building a city, let's go to my city specializations, and I'm building a city that actually, hold on, let's go to freight and trade. If I'm building a city, and that city is going to be a freight type city, okay, that city is going to be doing fuel, heavy industry, food, any of these. It means when I'm exporting it, it is counted as a freight, which means harbors. So try to get one of these cities, or try to select that land which has water, because you can build harbors, and harbors substantially increase your, you can say, freight capacity. 80 per a block of harbor for 12,000. So literally I tried later on, of course I realized this, I did build my heavy industry town in a place which has harbor. Like that I just built up harbors and I could export more of it. So if you're building any of these, try to pick a city that has a harbor. You know, it is a balance between it, but the most effective way of course is to build it that has a harbor. So other tips and tricks, if I do go at trade, each city has freight and trade capacity. When building up your cities, keep in mind that your city is a dirty city, and making the city to be your manufacturing waste city, but there's a small amount of oil in that area. Yeah. So for example, in terms of trade, if you have a small amount of, if you have a dirty city and you have a small amount of oil in that city, even though it's only manufacturing, yeah, try to build even though that small amount of oil, because you prevent that oil resource from being imported in. It means you're still using up your freight. You'll understand why I'm being very picky in terms of really not exporting a lot of freight and not importing like unnecessary stuff. if you have a dirty city and you have a dirty product in the city already as like, I don't know, third resource, you know, might as well harvest it like that. It'll save the actual capacity you have to export. You know why I keep saying this? Because literally you will max out your freight capacity sooner or later. So this reduces the amount of freight you are exporting, and you just do it your own. So that's practically it. Of course, for the taxes, the tax satisfaction for your citizens can be improved. When you lower the taxes, you do notice when you click on the satisfaction of your citizens, they say satisfaction 73, satisfaction 64. But if you do reduce the taxes, then they obviously do improve. So far, you do have, of course, various different types of tips. Traffic one, this is a very nice one. Have a bus route from your unskilled and skilled to all your leisures and public services. The route will be heavily used and cut the traffic down. This is really, I would say, one of the main things that you should do. This pretty much cuts down all the traffic you do ever need. This is obviously pretty much it for tutorial. I did cover it very, you can say, briefly, quickly. More in-depth for all these sections are in these videos here. And as always, thank you very much for donating. Happy gaming and enjoy Cities Excel 2012.